Ladies and gentlemen, independent Americans around the country, around the world, and above the world, we are going to stay squarely at the intersection of the most important issues happening in the world. And a very special guest, the first time I think we've ever had siblings back to back. A man that I consider a true American hero, a guy I've been honored to get to know. The great and powerful Commander Scott Kelly is here on Independent Americans. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I wouldn't say great and powerful, though.
Well, you're as close to touching God as anybody else I've had on this show, with the exception of your brother last week.
Yeah.
What a wild couple of days and weeks it's been for you guys, and you've had a wild life, sir. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you making the time to
Yeah.
connect with me now.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
let me ask you this. I asked your brother this. I ask everybody this. Given all that's going on in the world, we're going to talk about everything from the rocket launch to Ukraine to Elon. But it's a stressful time, and you're a man who probably has mastered stress more than almost anybody I can think of. Where are you, and how are you?
Well, it's really hard watching, a lot of the thing that makes our country great, institutions, democracy, the good work that the federal government does. It's hard to watch what's being done to it. I mean, taking a meat axe to employees, to programs, whether they're, in the U.S. or around the world. I mean, I really fear for children in this country, but also overseas, especially overseas, that are going to starve to death. And there's food waiting for them that could save their lives, and it's not being delivered. So it's tough. It's been tough. It's been a tough few weeks, actually.
And I think, hearing from you is really important. I mentioned this to your brother. He got a chance to speak to my 9-year-old before we recorded last week. But you've been such a role model for kids around the country and around the world. I think hearing your voice and your tone and even your compassion for other people is so critical right now. But we've seen the opposite of that in the last couple of days, especially the opposite of what we want our kids to look up to, not just in the White House, but in Elon Musk. And I want to ask you to respond to that in particular. I know you've spoken in some other places, but Elon Musk called your brother a traitor. Um, your thoughts?
My initial thought is my brother was defending this country, his country, um, when Elon was in South Africa trying to avoid the draft of his own country, probably at the very same time. So when I heard of that, my jaw almost hit the floor. Like, I mean, there's probably people in this country you could maybe say have done things that are borderline traitorous. I mean, particularly people in our government right now. Not my brother. I mean, he is the most, we talk about America first. He's been on Team America since we were kids. And I've known him my whole life from day one. There is no traitor in him. He, serves his country, served his country in the, actually, we were first responders when we were in high school. I mean, we used to drive ambulances as volunteers, and then later worked, in a paid capacity, even when we were in high school. Um, we're public servants. He then went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and then went into the U.S. Navy and flew combat missions. Risked his life as a test pilot. Flew 4 times in space. His wife, serving this country, was shot in the head. I mean, it's just mind blowing that Elon Musk, or anyone for that matter, would refer to my brother as a traitor.
It's a shameful moment, but in some ways, I think Elon's lack of discipline is a major fuck up because now he's got Kelly squared. He's got both of you guys to tangle with. But
Yeah.
you guys were getting into it with him about the space missions before this comment. He was questioning the leadership of some of your colleagues from other countries coming after you guys on that. Um, Can you talk about that? Because it seems
Yeah,
like he has an incredible lack of self-awareness, a lack of restraint, lack of discipline, and to do what you guys do
yeah.
probably requires the highest level of discipline imaginable.
It kind of plays into this upcoming launch today, the SpaceX Falcon launch, and is related to the astronauts on board the International Space Station, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, both of which my brother and I have known, geez, probably since, I don't know, 1993. I mean, before any of us were astronauts, we've known them for a really long time, both very professional. But yeah, initially, Elon was saying how it was a political thing. The Biden administration refused to bring them home because it would look like a win for Elon, who was supporting Trump, and all that is just bullshit. I mean, that is not true. And one of the ESA, European Space Agency astronauts, Danish guy, Andreas Mogensen, who I was in space with. I was the commander of the space station when he was on his first mission. I had been up there for, I don't know, 6 months. He showed up. He was there for about 10 days. That guy is one of the most honest, professional, kind people I have ever met. And for Elon Musk to call him retarded and an idiot, I mean, what is this guy? I mean, it's just so childish. So I just kind of jumped in there to defend him. And the response, and just basically, I said in a Twitter post, which I generally don't post much on Twitter anymore because I don't want to, feed the beast of hate and misinformation just by being there. But when Andy did that and Elon called him that, I defended him just like I basically what I said now. And then his response was, well, he is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And by the way, my brother's a Democratic shill. And, then my brother Mark just came back that said something like, hey, when you get the nerve to fly on one of your rockets, give us a call. And that was his response, which I thought was pretty appropriate.
Hmm. I mean,
Like
it's
if you
kind
had a if you
of
had a car company, right? And you were the richest man in the world, wouldn't you drive the car? I would. What's going on there? No one questions that. Like, why doesn't he fly his own rockets? Are they not safe? Or is he scared? I mean, what is it? Maybe he just thinks he's too important. I don't know.
I think that cuts to the heart of it. I mean, it was like when Trump, questioned John McCain's service after never serving himself, and now it's
Yeah.
kind of right out of the playbook with Elon calling you guys out. You've been known around the world as someone who is admirable, someone who shoots for the sky. I mean, you say you're not on Twitter, but you're on Blue Sky. If there was ever a guy who could be, an advocate for Blue Sky, it would be you. But now you're in a place where you got to defend your brother's honor. You got to defend the people you served with. You're mixing it up in this political world. And I think people are responding, especially because they're looking for fighters. I
Yeah.
said that Kamala Harris should choose your brother as VP because he would attract independents, because he was a fighter, because he was a patriot. Can you talk about what it's like for you to jump into this political world? I think you're an independent. I don't know, but you haven't been a political
Yeah.
guy in the same way your brother has. Can you talk about what it's like for you and your take on
Yeah.
this political dynamic?
I'm reluctant to do it, actually, surprisingly. I am never been a member of a political party. I think the only thing I ever joined was the Navy, the U.S. Navy. As far as organizations go, I'm not a joiner. Pretty independent thinker. I voted for Republicans. I mean, from Bush to Obama. I mean, not Obama's obviously not a Republican, but from Republicans to Democrats. And yeah, so I consider myself independent. I try to stay out of the politics of things just because it is so very ugly. And because it's my brother's, he has an official role as a politician, as does my, sister-in-law, who was formerly a member of Congress. So, and I think it's important for me to kind of let them do their thing and not like, confuse people, because people often confuse us. And if I went out there like full on politics, I would, some people would think it's it's my brother and not me. But in cases when, a guy like Elon, who has never served, who actually avoided serving in his own country, ran away to Canada. But when he calls my brother a traitor, I just felt like, I just need to point out the fact that, there's a very specific definition to being a traitor, giving, comfort and, to the enemy, right? There's this, for it to be considered a crime. But the conventional wisdom is being a traitor means you kind of change sides and now you're siding with the enemy or the former enemy that's now, I guess, no longer the enemy. I mean, who did that? Not my brother. Pretty
Mhm.
sure it's clear who has done that, who changed sides. That's traitorous.
Mm. I've told you this offline. I mean, the country is starved for leadership, and we are. This is independent Americans. We're supporting independent veterans. You're exactly the kind of leader that the country is looking for. So, I hope you run. I hope you keep in the fight because you are obviously capable and can rise above a lot of this. But
Uh,
you also have subject matter expertise in a lot of areas. Can we talk about Ukraine? You're with your
yeah,
brother
sure.
on the trip to Ukraine. You've been a powerful, outspoken advocate for Ukraine. Just today, we're recording this on Wednesday. Now there's a presentation of a prospective ceasefire to the Russians. But you were there. Tell us, what do you
Yeah.
think people need to know about what you saw and what you experienced?
Yeah. So I was at the president's address to Congress on Tuesday, and my brother said to me that day, he goes, the Ukrainians really need people to show up for them, to show that we still support them, that they have friends, especially after what happened in the Oval Office with President Zelensky. That they still have friends and they still have supporters. And he asked me if I wanted to go, so I said absolutely. I mean, I looked at my calendar. Yeah, I can go. Absolutely. Paid my own way over there. I don't want anyone to say that like I flew on a government airplane. I flew on United Airlines. I bought my own ticket. Got on the train, the overnight train. It was my third time there, and man, some of it is inspirational, and some of it is actually absolutely heartbreaking to see. The inspirational stuff is to just see the resilience of the Ukrainian people. The old men in some cases working on the drones in this undisclosed factory, building these drones, putting them building in this one location. I mean, like, I don't know, 20 of these things a day. Some of them are like cruise missiles that in the US would cost millions of dollars. These things have, not the same performance, but they can do the job for $150,000. I mean, we have a lot to learn from those guys when it comes to, rapid iteration, building hardware cheaply. Our bureaucracy is too big to do that efficiently. That's inspiring. Seeing the people I work with that are like that are still trying to raise money for ambulances, and now I'm trying to raise money for armored ambulances because the Russians are now attacking ambulances and killing the first responders intentionally, actually. And that's inspiring. I met with one of the women that I recently went to Antarctica. She was a prisoner of war for a year, and I met with her and her husband. And her husband's a lieutenant colonel, brigade commander of an international battalion that he's forming now. But he's been fighting. It's interesting. He said he joined the military in like 2001, and he was a lawyer, and for like until 2014, and now he's been at war ever since. He was joking about he lost his eye years ago, was by artillery. Is I think it was his left eye. I was sitting on his left eye. He lost his eye in artillery and had a glass eye in, and he was just joking about it, how he recently got injured again, but because his eye was gone, it wasn't a big deal. I only broke bones in my face, is what he said. So and for him that was nothing. I would not want to meet this guy on the battlefield, I will tell you that. But those
Mm.
kind of people are very inspiring. But then, there's the other horrible stuff like going to the F-16 base and talking to some of these pilots that are flying in combat that have 100 hours in type, and the
Mm.
looks on these guys' faces that, looking at them, that they know that they could get killed, and they're so young and very, very easily. Talking to the generals about having the intelligence removed from, not, they're not no longer getting the intelligence, and not only is that going to affect their soldiers and their military members, they're going to die. Ukrainian citizens are going to die. Citizens of other countries may die, including American citizens, some of which work for the US government, because we're not sharing intelligence. Because they used to be able to know, hey, there's a launch of a ballistic missile and we got to shoot it down. Where's it coming from? Oh, it's coming from over here. Now they haven't been seeing that until just today. They turned it back on. I don't know how many people lost their lives due to this, but people were killed today. When I was over there, 14 people were killed in an attack. So,
Mm.
to see that is just, that kind of stuff is heartbreaking. But the worst thing, oh my God, went to a military hospital where there was this one guy. Well, we saw a lot of amputees and talked to them about their experiences. The first time I was over there and visited with the veterans, wounded veterans, many of them were landmines. But this time they were mostly, and I don't know if this was just random, but it seemed to me they were mostly these FPV, first person view drones.
Mhm.
And this one guy had, he had no leg, but it was not like an above the knee amputation. It was basically below the hip, right to almost the trunk of his body. It completely missing one arm, had one hand that was missing. He was blind, lost his vision. Both of his eyes were stitched closed, and he still had the shrapnel wounds from the explosion. And you could tell where the explosion came from, like down by his leg, because you could just see the trajectory of the shrapnel wounds just covering his face. And my brother said, well, what do you think about our government's new policy with regards to Ukraine? No, like, not supplying weapons, not supplying intelligence. All this guy said is, and he said it in English, and it was pretty good English. He said, "What the fuck?" That's all he said. And you know what I said? I said, "You're damn right. What the fuck?" I mean, this is fucking criminal to do that to these people that have been fighting for their freaking, literally for their lives. We talked to two nurses in that same hospital that when the Russians first invaded, um, and were outside of Kiev, they actually firsthand witnessed Russian soldiers raping children and then killing them in front of their parents before those soldiers then killed the parents. And these women were just crying, telling us this story. And I just had to go up and, give them the biggest hug I could and say, hey, I want you to know there are still many good people in America that support you.
Mm. This is the truth that the people in this country especially need to hear now. And they need to hear it from voices like you that are trusted and they're not political and are not partisan. And the human stories are getting lost. I've been trying to mention that 19,000 kids have been abducted, right? In the peace negotiations, everybody's talking about land, but not about the 19,000 Ukrainian kids that have been taken into Russia from their families. But you have broken down the honor part of this, and the what the fuck is perfect for everything. But as we think back here to this country, thousands of our fellow veterans are being fired by the same guy who called your brother a traitor, the guy who's never served in uniform. They just fired 1,300 at the Department of Education today. If one-third of them are veterans, that's another 450 vets that got fired today. What the fuck? Your thoughts
Yeah.
on these mass purges of veterans happening across the federal government?
It's horrible. There's a guy that came into my brother's office, a disabled veteran that was working for the government and was actually, he's had a lot of veterans come in, but this one particular guy was, his story kind of stuck out in that he had a professional job. I don't recall what department in our executive branch of government it was, but he's now working a minimum wage job in a kitchen. And I mean, not only are you taking away these people's their salary, their benefits, their sense of purpose. You're robbing them of their dignity. I mean, and these are people that serve their country, in many cases are disabled veterans. And the fact that you're just stealing their dignity, firing, just letting them know you're completely disposable. You're a disposable person now, despite of everything you've given this country, including, your physical, the physical wounds or other ailments you may have had happen to you while you're in the service. You're now a disposable person, and we don't care about you any longer. That's the message they're sending, and that is just flat out wrong and disgusting. And I don't even have the words to describe how I feel about that. It's just beyond the pale.
Well, you're breaking it down and you're calling it like it is. And I think folks who watched you throughout your career, especially all the interactions you had with people when you were in space, when you came back, understand that you're a no shit guy. I hope if you can stick around for a couple more minutes for some extra questions for our Patreon members. I want to thank them for supporting this and all this important content we've been bringing. Let me ask you to kind of bring it back around if I can, sir. You're Commander Kelly. You're the guy that the team looks to, especially during adversity. This country is going through tremendous adversity right now, and it's looking for leaders, especially for the young people who are scared, nervous, apprehensive, are looking to leadership. What's the message from Commander Kelly for America right now as we navigate some pretty rough air?
Well, I always tell people, compartmentalization is important. Try to focus on the stuff you could control and ignore what you can't. And there's a lot of noise out there right now. Find places where you can help, team up, strengthen numbers. We know that, being in the military. And there, I think, is a way for every person to contribute. I mean, my wife's doing it now. She just joined an organization in our community where we live, CO District 4, Colorado, famous CO District 4 now. And so, yeah,
Tell folks what, for maybe folks, why is it famous, sir?
well, our congresswoman is Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman Boebert. So, yeah, that's us. So, yeah, she's going to work hard. I think it's going to take, all hands on deck and to fight back, because we have a lot to fight for. It's called the United States of America.
Well, we're going to have your back throughout it. I appreciate your candor, your lifetime of leadership and service. You and your brother are a hell of a 1-2 punch to lead America through these tough times. And, in the choose your fighter world, Elon Musk going with either one of you guys is a losing proposition for them, but I think a winning one for America. So I'm really grateful for your time and your leadership. I hope you run for office. I hope your brother runs for office for a long time, maybe runs for president or something else, because you're cutting through the noise and you're showing the right kind of American leadership and values when we need it the most. So thank you for your time, your leadership, and we're going to need you now more than ever, sir. Please keep after him.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stay vigilant.